Are new atheists, you know, the type Richard Dawkins, the late Christopher Hitchens, A.C. Grayling and the like, really shallow, naive and actually quite dangerous? That's the claim made by Dr. Robert Grant, who's tutor in philosophy at Trinity College Dublin. He's with us this morning. Good morning, Robert.
Hi, good morning, William. How are you
also, good to talk to you. Also here is Michael Nugent from Atheist Ireland. Michael, good morning.
Good morning.
Let's get your argument here. Dangerous, Robert.
Well, I should probably make it clear first that in the article I don't actually say that the new atheists are shallow, naive and dangerous, but I say that I think that their understanding of religion is somewhat intellectually shallow, and that their kind of faith, evidence-based science and reason can be somewhat naive and dangerous, because I think these things are morally neutral, and to kind of blindly follow them wherever they go can be risky because they can lead to different types of situations. So in terms of when I was saying that their understanding of religion is intellectually shallow, it's that they kind of blame religion a lot of times for a lot of the world's ills and a lot of evil that happens in the world. And I think that religion is more complex than this, and it's actually the underlying human nature and economic, social, political situations that lead people to use religion in various different ways, and that's the interesting question.
And you can read that article for yourself, a sort of op-ed piece in the Irish Times. Just Google it and Robert Grant's name will bring it up. What do you make of his argument, Michael?
Well, it's just not true. None of the new atheists are suggesting that if you get rid of religion that the world will magically be perfect. All of the new atheists have sophisticated analyses of the interrelationship between religion and other parts of society. Sam Harris has conducted neurophysiological experiments on the nature of rational beliefs and religious beliefs. Daniel Dennett has a sophisticated analysis of believing in God as opposed to believing in belief. You know, Richard Dawkins makes a distinction between cultural Christianity and theological Christianity, and the list goes on. I've been to any number of new atheist conferences around the world where all of these issues are discussed in a sophisticated way. But what we do is that we combine that with robust analysis of how silly some religious beliefs are, and I don't think there's any contradiction between the two.
Can I jump in there?
Please do, Robert. Yeah, go right ahead.
Yeah, okay, so let's just take an example, say, from Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris. They list off in some of their writings a bunch of kind of international conflicts, say Northern Ireland, Israel, Palestine, the Balkans, Sudan and these places, and they kind of say that religion is the cause of these problems. And the implication being that if there wasn't religion, that we wouldn't have these kind of problems in this way. That's kind of, they may not say that explicitly, but they do say that religion is the cause. And I think that this kind of neglects to do justice both to the complex nature of these problems themselves, and also does an injustice to religion as a wide-ranging kind of system of beliefs, where there's lots of people who are genuinely good, decent people who are also believers. So this is where the intellectually shallow comes into play, I think.
Michael, it's more complex than they're suggesting. They're generalising.
Yeah, no, of course it's more complex, but they're not suggesting that. This is the point that I'm making, that none of them have said that. And what Robert has said there is, first of all, he said that they said it, and then he said that they implied it. But the implication is in your mind, Robert. I mean, none of them said that what all of those people are saying is that morality is a product of evolution. It's a property of our brains, that morality is based on things like compassion and empathy and cooperation and reciprocity and fairness and justice, and that making moral decisions, which is a difficult enough thing to do anyway, is corrupted by religion, because religion introduces extra elements and extra instructions that are unrelated to those and that are based on what people think that the creator of the universe is saying.
Christopher Hitchens said religion poisons everything. Richard Dawkins said it's the root of all evil.
Exactly. No, he didn't say. Richard Dawkins didn't say that religion is the root of all evil. That's a title that a television producer put on a programme that Richard Dawkins disassociated himself from.
Does say.
But what would he say?
I don't want to get into this kind of picking out quotes.
But you're the one that started picking out quotes. Why would you not want to get into
it?
Go ahead, Robert.
He does say that in a lot of these places, like Northern Ireland and Palestine and these places, religion is the explicit cause of millions of deaths in these situations. And I think that's a dangerous statement to make.
Yeah, is an explicit cause, not the sole explicit cause? I mean, you, Robert, yourself.
It's the explicit cause. But there's no point in just arguing over these things.
No, Robert, that's not sufficient. You can't just introduce a quote and then when your quote is challenged say there's no point in arguing about these things. If you introduce the quote, you have to defend it.
I don't want to argue over specific quotes like
that. Well, then don't raise them. Don't raise them if you're not willing to have them challenged.
Well, can I take you away from the...
It's not for my sake, it's for people listening in that I thought that would...
Let me take you away from the political point to another point, Robert, which you made at the beginning, which has to do with evidence. And you might suggest this is a naive approach to understanding rationality, because and I think you might agree with this, Michael, you often hear from new atheists that a rational belief is simply defined as one which is grounded in evidence. But is that actually is that a satisfactory definition of rationality, Robert?
I would say that rationality is more complex than that, and I think that making evidence-based decisions can only take one so far in terms of what you choose to do with the evidence. I mean, data and evidence and information, again, are kind of morally neutral, and it's up to us, it's up to our value system and how we choose to interpret that evidence. That's where the interesting question starts. That's where moral philosophy starts, and they're the difficult questions that we've been struggling with for thousands of years. And to kind of imply that the more evidence we have, the kind of better things will be automatically, I think is, a risky thing to say.
Michael?
Well, the more evidence that we have about the nature of reality, the more likely we are to be able to make moral decisions that are based on the actual situation that we're facing as opposed to what we imagine is happening. Reason, the way I would define reason as opposed to faith is I would define faith as being believing things disproportionately to the evidence. And that can apply to secular projects as well as to religious projects. But ultimately, if you think about it, if we're discussing in any other context, if we're discussing the best way to build a suspension bridge or the best micro or macroeconomic policies to get a country out of a recession or anything like that, if somebody came up and said, well, I think we should do this because I had a vision in a cave or because somebody told me who has impregnated a virgin, we would immediately discount that as being irrelevant to the issue that we're facing. And there's no reason why we should make any distinction between that type of discussion and discussions about what are the best ways to improve human well-being and to minimise suffering by just introducing these irrational dimensions.
I completely agree with that, but I think what we have to do as well is move past kind of just saying, well, it's very silly to have a vision in the cave and it's very silly to believe this, because it's still, given all our scientific advancements, religion is still a very powerful force in the world, and we have to understand what that gives to people and why people are still kind of attracted to these things, and why maybe it's difficult for people in certain situations to just employ a very rational, calculating outlook. I mean, it's very easy to be rational when you live in a comfortable environment where you know where your next meal is coming from, but maybe when you're unemployed and hopeless and there's other problems, it's more difficult to have that kind of rational outlook. And this is the aspect of human nature that I talked about in the article that I think we need to spend more time thinking about.
But Michael, isn't it the case when you read many new atheists or listen to their lectures on YouTube or wherever, very popular stuff, of course, you get a sense that they're saying people of religious faith are somehow intellectually challenged?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, no, some of the most intelligent people in the world are religious, but they have blind spots on this particular issue, and there's no disputing that. And what new atheists do is we introduce robust debate that in any other context, if we introduce it in the context of politics, if we introduce it in the context of economics, if we introduce it in any other context, even things that people do feel very strongly about, people would just recognise it as normal, robust debate. Robert, you yourself described some religious views last week as insane and silly, and yet you are capable of combining that robust attack on religious beliefs with sophisticated analysis, as do the new atheists. I've been to any number of international conferences over the past decade where the type of sophisticated analysis that you're talking about goes on alongside the robust debate.
I'm sure that's true, but I think you'll have to admit that their general public perception of them has been somewhat intolerant and I would say divisive and probably counterproductive to a lot of their own goals.
Yeah, and mistaken.
Robert, incidentally, which religious beliefs did you think were insane and silly?
I'm not sure, actually. I can't remember saying that.
Well, that's an amazing thing to say if you're not sure which beliefs you're talking about. That's a very strong thing to say about something that you don't know.
Where did he say that?
On Newstalk.
On Newstalk?
I genuinely, I don't remember saying exactly.
Well, why would you say that something is insane if you don't know what it is that you're talking about?
I don't.
And then
remember
simultaneously accuse other people of engaging in over robust debate.
I mean, I'm sure that there are certain religious beliefs that I don't agree with. I genuinely don't remember what the comment. Do you remember? You can tell me if you do.
Well, no, you're the one that said it. I don't know what's going on in your mind, but I mean, if you're prepared, or if you want, as you rightly should, the right to say that some religious beliefs are insane, and simultaneously have yourself respected as somebody who combines that with intellectual, sophisticated analysis, you should give the same credit to the New Atheists.
Well, I remember reading not so long ago on Twitter, Robert, Richard Dawkins saying something quite similar about people who don't believe in the theory of evolution. He said when he meets people who don't believe in the theory of evolution, he knows immediately they're either uneducated or insane.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know what to say. I don't remember making that comment on Newstalk. That was probably in the heat of the moment in a discussion. I'm not sure exactly what I was referring to, but if I came across as insulting religious people, I certainly would retract that, and I wouldn't want to come across that way.
Well, this article in the Irish Times is interesting because obviously something about the New Atheist got your philosophical goat up. What exactly was it?
Yeah, it was, as I said, I found that they kind of didn't take their analysis far enough. I thought that they were kind of satisfied a lot of the time to just poke holes in religious belief and say, people shouldn't be religious, this is silly and it's irrational, where I think the more interesting question is to understand why it is that people are religious. And I think I often make the comparison with the great atheists of the 19th century, Karl Marx and Friedrich Nietzsche, who also were extremely critical of religion in their writings, but they took it further. They took that just as a starting point. For Marx, he wanted to understand the economic conditions that led to the need to kind of have this sense of comfort and meaning. And for Nietzsche, it was a discussion of power relationships and whether there was submissive or dominant power relationships that were constructing the values of a society. But either way, they went further and they tried to understand what was it that's driving this.
You probably agree with a lot of that, Michael.
Of course I do. I mean, this is like a redundant discussion. I mean, I agree, and not only do I agree, but I have said repeatedly that New Atheists do engage in that type of analysis, and I don't know why. I can understand why Robert might have initially believed that we don't, and made the comments, but now that he has been informed that we do, I don't know why he's still continuing to suggest that we don't.
Well, I still think that a lot of their analysis of a lot of international conflicts and stuff that goes on in the world is limited. It's lacking in a real engagement with some of the causes of these things.
Yeah, look, you're talking to one of the New Atheists at the moment. I'm chairperson of Atheist Ireland, which is one of the key organisations in Atheist Alliance International that promotes New Atheism. There's no need to talk to me as if it's something else and say they. You seem to think that New Atheism is. You seem to think that New Atheism is 4 books.
I'm not referring to all atheists. I'm just referring to these guys that I've read.
Yeah, well, then maybe you need to read a bit more or discuss things with a few more people.
Maybe so. I mean, this is not my area. This is not what I study in Trinity. This is just something that I was interested in.
Well, we're going to have...
Absolutely, I need to do more reading, I'm sure.
And we'll talk more about it, I'm sure we always do. Listen, thank you both for giving us a bit of an intellectual caffeine hit to start the programme. Dr. Robert Grant from Trinity College Dublin and Michael Nugent from Atheist Ireland.